Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother Asar Imhotep with the Mando Mandela Institute for the Advancement of Science and Culture and the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. Today is Saturday, June the 19th, 2021, and this is a late night edition after party open discussion coming from our good brother Wujawu's YouTube channel. So we're going to continue the conversation so we don't have 6 hour long videos that we used to do back in the day on brother Wujawu's channel. So no real intro. Well, I guess I could do the intro. So y'all gonna get my intro anyway. So we're coming back. All right, peace. All right. I had no other thumbnail, so yeah, I just had to get my Sam Hotep question and answers thumbnail, so we don't get looking crazy all in these YouTube streets. But as I stated earlier, our good brother Wujawu had his Friday night freestyle hieroglyph meta-nature session going on, and they had a series of conversations. I think according to him, they actually didn't even do their lesson today because they went in various different directions in terms of topics. And so we just wanted to continue the conversation. I know I had a show earlier today which ended a couple hours ago, and I'm up because I've had an energy drink, and so I'm gonna be up for a while. So we got our good brother Aziz Fall in the building, Sister Emmy Cat, Sister Mika One, brother Harry, Sean P, and of course our good brother Wujawu. And I think we left off, or we wanted to start off the conversation on the debate that was happening on Brother Garfield's channel today. Well, I don't know if it was on his channel or was it just a private Zoom. But he had a debate on whether Jesus existed or not, or was Jesus a historical figure or not, between, I forgot who was actually in it. But our good brother Sean saw the debate, and so he's going to give us his take on what he saw, what he liked, what he didn't like, who presented the better argument, what would he have liked to see, all that good stuff. And then we'll just kind of round robin from there on any other given topic until we just say we done. So Brother Sean, you have the floor.
I just want to say ETM Hotep, Rennie Sean, welcome to Peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Appreciate being on the panel with Brother Saul Jawu, Emmy Ket, my Ward Clan member Aziz Falls, and Mika, the fake Hebrew. Nah, I'm just playing. So
I knew he was gonna start.
But as far as the debate, the debate was pretty cool. First, I know a few things that people want to make sure that they are fully understand this. First, it was about just basically he labeled it as a scholarly clash on, the historic, if Jesus existed, right? You had brother Pastor Richardson, Damian Richardson debating Richard Carrier, Dr. Richard Carrier, and everybody that may be familiar with Richard Carrier is aware of the fact that he takes the position that Jesus is no Jesus. He's there all the way hard, and he's written books about it. Plenty of articles. I don't know if I went out on y'all, but he wrote plenty of articles and things of that nature regarding his position. In the first round, the format was two 20-minute rounds, 5-minute rebuttals each round, and 7-minute question and answers, and just some small dialogue in between due to some technical issues that existed. It was a private Zoom. People got a link in their email where they could register to get in, and to do all of that. It was over 200, about as much as 260 people bear witness to the debate. Um, Richardson went first. Richardson went first, and in his opening statement, he set the bar. He came out like, "Listen, I'm ready to go to war," and he was trying to trap Carrier earlier on in his opening round with this premise. Now he made an argument stating that uh, both sides had something to prove about the validity of Jesus existing and so forth, and he was ready to argue his position. Carrier came back in that first round. He was not as tactical as Richardson was, but the second round he kind of just took the gloves off. Um, Richardson, he put some stuff on the screen. He shared the screen in that first round earlier on, but then he didn't resort to going back to the screen early on. And Carrier just went, off notes and things of that nature, how he normally does, based on his research. And he just, stood on his own research, and he challenged academia. So what I liked about the debate was what I liked about Carrier first. I like Carrier's position on staying sound with the historical method. So he stood on the historical method pretty often, and he used models and to argue, right? But what he didn't do was dismiss the existence of a Jesus. He even would later go in and say in the second round, late, you know what I mean, that maybe a Jesus did exist, and then he would go on from there. So I would have liked to see him dismantle the whole myth of, and not to have said that. And I also would have liked to have seen from Carrier him tactically dismiss Tacticus, because that was something that Richardson used earlier on, and what he based pretty much his whole argument on. He says other scholars, but he didn't demonstrate a command for other scholars. So he kind of appealed to populace. He also appealed to authority in a lot of instances, and of course there was another fallacy he actually did. But me, I'm looking and listening for those things because of people like USR and Wujawu, and how y'all always critique information, and immediately you could tell the difference. So I liked Richardson's start, like I said earlier. I think he got weak later on, but in the question and answers, he took some jabs. But he didn't give. Well, Carrier didn't attack the premise of Jesus. Therefore, Richardson was allowed to keep him alive as a belief, and I call it in my initial observance of the debate even, because you have to do that. You have to go back and rewatch the debate maybe a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, to actually digest the information and critique what was being heard and substantiate what was being heard if we are to honestly draw a conclusion. But I favor, excuse me, I favored the methodology a lot and the models a lot because that was something that I could relate to versus just relying on Tacticus primarily and then some old biblical stuff that was mentioned. But all in all, like I give both of them a good job. I think Garfield did an excellent job. There was no interruption. Both Richardson and Carrier yielded the floor in a timely manner, even when Garfield was, would let them run over a minute or two and give the other one a minute or two back, and neither one of them would have an issue or problem with that. They even agreed upon that while in the discussion. Even their back and forths, the question and answers was pretty tactical by both. I think Carrier scored a little bit more points than Richardson, in my opinion. But I just call it even from the onset.
I think
I ain't know
everybody
if
else was muted. So
My bad. My bad. I'm sitting here talking. Uh, I forgot to. I forgot if you mentioned at the beginning what the positions was Richard Carrier of the opinion that that Jesus existed,
no,
that he did not exist.
did not exist.
Okay.
It did
And
not exist.
man.
The neither could actually. I mean, the research questions, right, about the existence of Jesus, whether he existed or not, neither one of them fully put together a strong argument. They it pretty much was argued from a belief perspective. Like Carrier mentioned that there's a probability of 1/3 that he may have exist. You know what I mean? He didn't close the door on Jesus. He didn't close the door. So, Richardson just had to keep the door open, and yeah, that was that.
see, that's where I'm a strict, like how I argue it is that Jesus does not exist or did not exist. And there are some people who try to give it wiggle room, like there was a guy that existed, who may have been named Jesus, who some attributes were added over time. Well, to this day, what makes Jesus Jesus was that he was the Son of God, and he died on the cross and rose on the third day, even though it was really kind of the second day, but we won't get technical. And that he did all these kind of miracles and walked on water and all of that. Like that has to be Jesus. It can't be some other guy named Jesus who was, a great orator, and then later on he can fly and decode the matrix. Because that guy does not exist. And that's what we care about, not some regular guy who later becomes deified.
And that's the
go ahead.
Oh. No, yeah, you hit it on the same thing. I like that's what I stand on. You know, because I've heard debates like that where people will keep a narrow door cracked or narrow window open with the screen in there to allow for a historical person named Jesus who may have been the inspiration for whatever, but those attributes that they would even use for that don't matter to the essence of what a Jesus is to everybody in Christianity and of today, you know. So it's like that distinction needs to be made early in that kind of debate. You got to kind of make that, you got to lay that out. And so, Sean, was there any attempt to do that at least?
Yeah. You know, Richardson, of course, from his perspective, you know, he defending Jesus. He using scriptures. He's trying to use history to substantiate a presence for a Jesus. Carrier's attacking the methodology, but he really never just truly got full, you know, let me say he really didn't do a really good job at just trying to eliminate him. Like, you know, like from what I'm used to, right? We always like for instance, and I'm just gonna just be truthful. You know, y'all don't leave anything to chance. Like you immediately attack the claim. Somebody makes a claim, it's dead up on arrival. It can't have legs. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like y'all
It's not
always
walking
say,
away. It's not walking up out of here.
yeah, you said it. You always say that. Saul always say like you gotta cut the legs off. It can't go nowhere. So immediately, as soon as the claim is made, you address the claim, kill the claim. End of story. And no, that wasn't done. But it was beautiful on both. It was beautiful on both sides.
But I hope that it set a standard in regards to the kinds of conversations that we expect to see more of in this community, in terms of the level of professionalism, in terms of the level of respect, you know, for the other opponent, and the level of actual scholarship that is to be expected. I would hope that, you know, that level was brought, you know, to the to the community that we call the conscious or unconscious, however you want to label it, community.
They were not used to it. I mean, you look at the comments in the Zoom chat. Some people were just not used to the style because they wanted Carrier to behave in a manner that Richardson would, you know, based on the demonstration. Like, you know, Richardson shared the screen or whatever. Carrier was refuting things, but people was like they wanted to see what he was refuting. But he stood on his own research. Like literally, you know what I mean? Like you always say, like people get shaken up by original research. It scares them to death. If it's not the populist research or the populist way to go, they tend to disprove of it. And I'm like, nah, I mean, he's did his work. He's standing on his work based on he's just using his, basically he was debating Richardson using notes.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a hard thing for a lot of us to get past, because, you know, a lot of us have come into consciousness, and since we, you know, entities like us meaning Amaran Squad, Mossy Warrior Clan, et cetera, we've been pushing methodology and things, and having solid sources. They think that the argument stops when somebody of note has written it down somewhere, and haven't developed the skill set to evaluate the arguments, one, on their own merits, on the logic of the argument, and two, on the supporting evidence itself, regardless of who is presenting the information, including the actual speaker and their original work. Because, you know, like we run into this all the time. where it's like, well, who else agrees with you? I don't care if no one agrees with me. Do you have the skill set to evaluate the evidence and the logic of my argument? That's what matters to me. Because you can always find someone to agree with you and or disagree with you in the literature. That ultimately means nothing. It's your ability to assess the argument and the evidence itself. And I think in large, our community isn't used to that.
Absolutely. I mean, I run into it all the time. Just because and especially nowadays, you could type in any keyword in Google and find somebody saying anything that you put forward. And just because they find it, they think that, see, that's not it at all. But I would like I said, I missed the debate. So a quick question, Sean, is it archived somewhere? Are they
Yeah, it was recorded. It was definitely recorded. And there's access. Well, there'll be access to it because Zoom, after you record it and you had the show and everything, it gives them an archive to be able to digitize it and all of that stuff. So that had to be processed for him. So he stayed live during that whole situation. So it was, to be honest, you would have been pleased with the way it was handled. Garfield did a good job moderating. He kept people in tune. He didn't have really no dead space. He even, when Carrier was going, because Carrier's on the mountains. And so when he was having technical issues in the mountains with the internet, he drove down the mountain just to continue the debate. But in the meantime, Garfield just opened it up, to have some questions and stuff like that. But I like the way that the way it was handled. I hope it did set a precedence in the community, and people could digest that, learn from that, and be able to move forward like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's give each other that 10 minutes, 20 minutes of respect to get your information out. And then, after we do our 2020, we can rebut some key points. But I think both of them did a good job of listening to the other one's arguments. I don't know if Pastor Richardson had any assistance in trying to catch certain points Carrier was trying to make or whatever that he could challenge quickly, and vice versa. But it looked like Carrier had more of a command for his argument, so he didn't have to go through to do anything. Where Pastor had to rely on Tacticus and a couple of other people, and then some scholars that we never found out about or any information from.
Okay. What I would like to see, one, is that structure that's you described. That's beautiful. That's what I'm used to myself, and that's what I would recommend. That's what I would like to see. But that's only one. Now the other part that I would like to see is the cultivation of the audience, more people watching these kind of things, to learn how to discern, how to evaluate arguments at the same time too, because that's an equal part of the problem. You could put on a very good structured debate with the respect and nobody's talking over each other, but if the audience don't know how to evaluate, then it's kind of defeats the purpose, a little bit.
Good point.
So yeah, we got to, so hopefully this will be, like you said, set precedents for both of those things. That, so we can't forget the other side. The audience got to really get used to that. And like you said, you were saying in the Zoom chat, people were not used to whatever. So I guess it'll take time for people to really start to grasp that part of it too.
Well, you also got to keep in mind that sometimes, even if the audience itself is not fully able to comprehend at the moment, it is good for archival purposes just to have it, so that when they do mature in in their knowledge of things, they can go back to the conversation and get, you know, some more information and some more jewels. It's just like, you know, watching a movie, you know, a second or third time, and you know, at some time later, and just noticing some things that you didn't notice before, that you weren't necessarily ready for. Exactly.
The Matrix. And as far as a conversation, that reminds me of your conversation where you broke down the logic aspect of the comparative method, where you had logic tables and things. And I know at the time that will definitely go over a lot of people's heads, but that was like what now, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Something like that. Whenever that debate was with Netanyahu.
Right. So now if people revisit it, you know, you could kind of catch on and stuff. So yeah.
Speaking of that, like, you know, for my computer science classes, you know, now I'm doing the hardware stuff now, and you know, so you can see the logic tables in a very practical way in when it comes to electrical engineering, and even how the computers operate, and all of this stuff you can just, you know, utilize, and I definitely will be using some of this in my linguistic arguments. There's already text written now, you know, in terms of the mathematics of linguistics, that, you know, are showing the relationship between these particular concepts, and which is very, you know, more my speed in understanding these things. But that's another conversation for another time. But yeah, that same stuff for the linguistics is the basic stuff that makes your computer and or your light switch. You know, if we want to talk about and logic gate, for example, or your alarms, you know, it's all the same thing. And but yeah, I'll end there.
Yeah. That's it. But archive, I'm saying, I was just saying the archive is wonders, because you brought the movies, and I watched Matrix, and I'm like, it's almost like when I did it, I was like, man, it's like watching a different movie.
Exactly.
When I watched it the second time.
Oh, I watched it a million times. And you know,
yeah, I watched it many times, but that second go around, you know, the scene at the end where I forgot, my man dressed in white, where he had all the TVs around him and stuff. That I kept going to that scene, and then the Oracle scenes.
See, like, there's little nuances that, you know, unless you are into software development or computer science, you wouldn't really even notice. You notice that, for example, the agents never talk over one another. It is always one after the other when they make a speech. And I believe that this is done purposely to mimic, you know, the central processing unit, because when you have a computer, only one task is ever being done at any one moment. The processing is just done so fast that it appears as if there's a continuous flow of multiple activities, you know, going on at the same time. But the computer can only do one task at a time. So when you see how they move and operate like a program does, and that is just one at a time in terms of their conscious movements and things. But you know, you wouldn't necessarily get that if you weren't you know, a computer science or a software developer head, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, people wouldn't pick up on that. And but that's interesting you said that, because I read many moons ago and things that even our human mind, we actually think we multitask, but there's arguments that we actually don't. multitask. The same in that same vein.
Yeah.
We appear to, but we actually don't. So that's interesting. That's interesting.
Exactly.
But yeah, what else, Sean? So basically, you saying who won? Now let me stop.
We all
Nah,
won, the audience.
yeah, Garfield won, man. You know what I mean? Nah, I think I can't decide on either one of them right now. I really gotta continue to review the game tape. Just reviewing it once, live, you don't catch everything. It's gonna be something that you catch in a replay that you didn't catch live.
But you
So
know, oh sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was saying earlier when we were on earlier, I was saying, from my training, I was on a debating team. Remember, the drilled in us, the ultimate goal or winner is really everybody, like in the bigger picture, because the point is to move closer to the truth, closer to the reality and truth. But underneath that, you zoom in a bit, you may have a person who prevails, in arguments and superior methodology and arguments and things. But in the bigger picture, everybody's supposed to win. And so if we could start to adopt that concept, I think we can really make some progress as a quote unquote community or something, you know.
Yeah, it's gotta be more of that precedence. It has to be more of that, because if we just take it and then shuck it to the side and continue to behave the way we have seen these rap battle style debates, then we're really not going to be able to advance knowledge. Like, that's the whole thing. And I think on our side, we pride ourselves in proper research methodology and being able to answer research questions, and then demonstrating that or having a command for that in those moments. And then you got another side of people who don't care nothing about none of that. You know what I mean? It's irrelevant to them, but they just want to be entertained by something. Well, I can tell you this: there was no entertaining going on. There was no jokes cracked. It was just information,
Yeah.
and it was two people having a dialogue back and forth. You know, one sticking to one side, the other one sticking to the other side. Neither one of them trying to come across the line. Much so, and the challenge was there. So yeah, there wasn't no ha-has or none of that.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you're supposed to be able to articulate and lightheartedly, but not, yeah, like how you saying, yeah. That's that's excellent. I mean, sounds like it, I would like to check it out. So that's why I was asking if it was archived. You say yeah, but did Garfield mention that he's gonna make it available, or is it gonna be like a reduced price to see the archive, or is he just gonna after a while make it public or whatever?
I don't know what his plans are. I know he's going to sell it to some people who missed it, but then I don't know beyond that point or what he may or may not do. 'Cause you
Okay.
never know, so it's gonna be hard to predict.
Well, that's good. And then the fact that it was monetized, a monetized thing, because the opportunities, because that's the attempt on the other kind of debates or the misnomer debates that attempted to happen. So this, for it to be structured the way you're describing it and monetized, then those two things match because you get quality, and then it enables you to bring more of those along. You can, people will be interested in the
Yeah, he got
platform.
an email. He got an email about someone else that he was trying to bring into the community and have someone else, debate like that. So you're right. He's going to set a precedence,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
he's
because
going to
that's
be able to do what we want to see.
Good to hear.
yeah, because the what you said was 260 folks at $20. That's over 5,000. Now I know, he had to break, of course, off the
platform,
the debaters,
Oh,
so
yeah.
but even still, that's not too bad at all. And I'm not sure how much, Richard Carrier, because I think because I heard him say for another debate, it was going to cost him like 4,000 or 2,000, per hour to do, saying it's a debate or something. It may have been Richard Carrier or somebody else. A big
Bart
name.
Ehrman wanted almost $6,000.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's for something like that, you would have to do a lot of sponsorship type stuff,
Yeah.
And I would in that case, I wouldn't even do well. I don't know how YouTube. Well, because you have a membership now with YouTube. Like I would stream it live on YouTube, but you can only see it if you are a member at a certain level, and you pay for, or you could just pay for, like you could do a pay-per-view event on YouTube, and it'd be the same thing. It's just that you won't get the funds immediately, because I think with YouTube you have to wait at least a month for you to get any of your revenues from any kind of YouTube donations or ad revenues or anything to that nature. But so you would have to have the funds up front to pay your debaters, but you would get that back in at the back end. But yeah, I mean I used to do that stuff, but more so live back in Houston. This is back in the day when I would have Nation of Islam and Hebrew Israelite debates.
Yeah,
way before Sarnetter and all them. In the South, in Houston, I used to have those type of debates.
But that's good though. So that's a good report back. That's what I want to hear. Now I just want to check it out. I'm not really curious about that topic though, really, but the fact that I just want to see, I just want to see good structure. So I'll watch it for that.
Hey, I'm working on a Kemet debate. So hopefully, by 2022, the beginning of 2022, I'll have that debate ready. And it would take longer because I have other people from other countries in mind to join the debate and present. It's more so a symposium / debate, but so that's in the works. But yeah, Lions baby says Sar was converting brothers to the Israelite. I was. I used to bring the brothers to my college campuses, and we would have these discussions and debates and whatnot, and that was part of my recruiting strategy. So to bring them in front of the public and just let them do their thing, and then afterwards, we would have these these long dialogues and conversations, and that's what get people interested. So beforehand, they weren't as bad as like what you would see in New York, because like in Texas is so big that in the cities like in Houston or whatnot, everybody's driving. So it's not like you're gonna get a good amount of people just walking in traffic all day, even if you're downtown, in Houston. And so you see a few, you can see now like people in corners and stuff, but one, Texas is hot as hell, so them outfits is gonna blow up. You're gonna blow up in them damn outfits in the middle of the damn street trying to holler at some folks. And then it just wouldn't be as effective because not that many people is going to stop by in the middle of the cross section to hear what you got to say. So you're yelling at passing cars. So it's not like in Philly, like the Hebrew Israelites, like, you know, I live on 52nd Street, and right there where the train stops, you know, it's traffic. People are walking, coming off the train. So like you can have dialogues with folks because it's mad people just walking in this area. But you know, in Texas, nah, it's not as effective. So like bringing them to college campuses where you have a captivated audience, you kind of have a captivating debate topic, you know, you can do some things. You know, this is before YouTube, so you know, even the recordings now we had to digitize it and upload it if I even still have them.
Somebody said, I am not interested in any exchange that will arrive at a 1/3 probability of anyone's existence.
Hey, but statistically, that is significant, you know, in terms of probability. But you know, but that's another conversation, because that's again like something like that. Your audience would have to be savvy to know that, you know, 1/3 is, you know, it's significant. So it's not like 10%. It's not like, you know, that's 30+%.
Yeah,
you know, and
that's some good odds.
yeah, actually, that's what I'm saying. So you know what he's saying is that it's strong that this person existed, but for me, it's zero, because unless that Negro walked on water and turned water into wine and had a cookout where, you know, the 3 fish and loaves turned into thousands, that Negro did not exist. And then you got to explain, first of all, the logic of the Son of God. So the question is this: if Jesus, okay, let me go back. You have to answer the question, was Jesus born or was he created? Because when you say only begotten son, to begotten, like he would have to have been born of someone. He would have to be in the lineage of someone. And so, you know, I know that this kind of confusion it sparks the whole, well, Jesus is God type deal. But if Jesus is God, how is he his only begotten son? And begotten from whom? You know, and this makes a big difference, because if Jesus was created like everything else in the world, or excuse me, in the universe, then how is Jesus the only begotten son? What do you mean by begotten? Since he was created like everybody else, by that logic, I'm God's only begotten son.
Well, my answer to the whole thing is that all of that is a historical, elaborate story to cover a woman cheating on her man.
Basically,
because the angel Gabriel is really Jesus' father, and that dude his name was Gabriel. He claimed to be an angel, and he went unto Mary. He even named his own son and everything. So Mary created this whole story so that she wouldn't look bad, and everybody rolled with it and went with it, and it unfolded into a full-blown religion. There you go. That's my take, and I'm sticking to it.
2000 years
but he wasn't
religion.
even Jesus. It was Emmanuel. So where did Emmanuel go? That's the question. So we talk about a totally different person. Emmanuel maybe existed, but Jesus, it was just some name somebody, you know, in Yeshua or whatnot, you know, later. Just somebody just made up some stuff.
That was just a good story, boy. I think all women, boy, take lessons from that one, because Mary pulled it off, boy.
I asked the question some months ago on my YouTube channel. was Mary a Me Too victim? Because God just, came into her and just gave her a baby. Did she want a baby? There's nothing in the story that says that Mary prayed for a son or anything to this nature. She just got a dream. Yo, you about to be pregnant and have this baby. But don't worry, it's going to be Jesus and you will be blessed.
Interesting.
If I just come up to a sister and be like, I'm just going to impregnate you, there'll be some problems.
That's what I said. That's an elaborate. Listen,
that's how you know Mary wasn't black.
That's an elaborate story, man. Think about that. Some dude gonna walk up to you and say, first gonna brown nose you and compliment you. Hail Mary, full of grace. So that was the ancient way of complimenting. Oh, you so fine, you so whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and drop this off with you and bless you, come in unto you, and drop you with this and leave you my proposed name. And don't worry about your current husband or your boyfriend or fiance. Just say Angel did it. I'm an angel. I'm Angel Gabriel. Matter of fact, you can find me in the book of Daniel. Well, I'm telling you, boy, that is.
And then, this Joseph now got to be a stepdaddy with no conversation, no dialogue about nothing. Just like, how do you even? Yeah, it's just so much.
They even went so elaborate to falsify the birth records. Obviously, they had birth certificates, but they had lineage certificates. So they altered his lineage certificate. One book he traced back to David. Another book he goes back, whatever.
All the way to, but here's the thing, all the way back to Adam. And I would have these debates with them. I'd be like, Jesus couldn't have existed because Adam didn't exist. Now, most scholars will tell you that Adam is a what do you call it, eponymous, whatever the name is, ancestor. It's just a myth, right? And Adam didn't exist. He's just a character to kind of give an origin story, for the people in the book. And so to have a lineage to go all the way back to Adam is just false. Like, because Adam didn't exist. And if Adam didn't exist, Jesus couldn't have existed. And then when you look at it, Jesus has two different lineages. So like in the Bible, the lineage is through the father. But in one of those lineages, they jump from the mothers. Like, you got to look at it carefully. Like it's like two mothers in there that's given in the lineage. So how, by tradition, are you counting all these people as being the direct descendants, or ancestors of Jesus, and then having two different lineages?
That's what I mean. They falsify.
Yeah.
He got two birth certificates. What we would say in modern time, two birth certificates. But he was trying to get his passport. He done falsified his birth certificate and everything, So that's what I'm saying. It's a very elaborate story that became a religion. We're actually praising and built buildings called churches after a cover-up. That's like Jerry Springer, ancient Jerry Springer and Maury Povich becoming a religion.
That's why no one wants to debate me, because I don't debate the historicity of anything regarding the Bible. For me, that's irrelevant. What I debate is the inner logic of the storylines and the culture in the text, which is why, for example, I highlight the rapiness of everyone in the damn Bible to the point where God is a rapist. Like, that's just the culture of the biblical folks. It's just rape after rape, and it's just good. It's just, this is normal, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, once you give those texts, like, by what, because you always got to ask the question, okay, so we provide mythologies and stories and things of this nature because we want to provide our children, the next generations, the ones who are going to take over the community when we're dead and gone. We want to provide them models of excellence and models for living. So on what grounds are these models a representation of excellence to where there's justification for the raping of women and the offering, for example, the offering of the daughters to be raped? Like, I don't know how many of you have daughters, but, you know, I always ask the question, if me and a gang of niggas from Fifth Ward came to your house and tried to rape you, the father. so we're homo thugs.
That's the first mistake.
So we're coming not for any women, we're coming for you. And you like, nah, bruh, why would you do that? Here, take my virgin daughters. You can rape them and do whatever you want with them. Like, how is that the first thing that comes to your mind at that moment, other than, you know, then we about to box and one of us is going to die at this moment?
I mean, boy, we could do that with a lot of the stories in the Bible. And you're right, historicity of it is really a byproduct. That's like a side dish.
Yeah.
Because outside of Jesus, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, but it's true, because how could something like that be considered sacred? You know, by anybody, you know.
Yeah. Exactly. And because, like, when we get to the inner logic, so I know, for example, Wujawu likes to ask the question for that, if God is omnipresent, can God move? Right. And if he can't move, for example, for those people who argue that Jesus is God made flesh, how, if he's omnipresent? Yeah, because he can't move. In other words, there's no place in the universe or existence where there is not God or is not God. Yep. And so he couldn't have collapsed into some kind of minor singularity and embedded himself in, you know, the Virgin Mary and gave birth to himself and then committed suicide and then rose from the dead. And when he did, he was talking to himself in heaven.
And still be himself.
Exactly.
but I wrote it down, though.
but I wrote it down. Yes. God, so that's the logic. God loved the world so much that he came to earth as his own son to sacrifice himself to convince himself to forgive the sins of people that he himself made for people in, you know, to have. Like that's like many to-do loops in one. Like that's like writing a DOS program, line 10, go to line 20. Line 20, go to line 10.
Exactly. And not even that, we can go back. One of the arguments that I always make is, okay, because ultimately he's sacrificing himself for the sins of man, right? And to bring them back into a covenant and in a position to where, you know, they won't die eternally for their sins. But let's go back. So the introduction of sin comes as a result of Adam and Eve. And the snake, the serpent, convinces Eve to eat of the fruit, and then she shares it with Adam, and then it was this act that brought, quote unquote, sin into the world. But what nobody seems to think about and contemplate is that Adam and Eve, regardless to how old they are, were children. And they were intellectually incapable of understanding what God said and meant, because they were not supposed to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So they had no grounds to understand what was good and what was bad, because you prevented them from eating of that tree. So it's like if you were to have a conversation with a dog and you put some dog food there and say, don't eat the dog food, as if it understands English and is not going to go off of its own instincts when you turn your back and eat the food.
Right.
They are dumb. They have no knowledge of anything. There's no way that they can distinguish between what is good and what is evil. They have no knowledge. They're dumb. So then you punish them for being dumb, and you created them dumb.
But hold up. So that leads to, I always say this: God of the Bible is anti-science, anti-knowledge, because he forbid them to partake of the tree of knowledge. And so that raises, a whole bunch of questions. But one that you kind of touched on, how can God threaten a consequence like death, threaten them of death, if they didn't even know death? Like how can they even understand a consequence of an action if they don't even understand the consequence at all? Like they've never witnessed it with anything, and then you forbade them, excuse me, to even know, because knowledge of good and evil, to say that like that is discern. So they had no discerning power.
None. They were dumb. They were cattle. So think about it like this: the sin, like God intended you to be cattle, to be like a cow. You weren't supposed to learn or do anything. You were just supposed to just walk and eat grass. That was the intention.
Yep.
But gave commandments as if you can understand. Where did they get language from?
So this serpent creature, people really need to thank the serpent creature, actually. Like the serpent, they call the serpent the devil, but I know the word devil's not there. But this serpent, Nakash, is really who people need to thank.
Basically.
Because the serpent kept it real. And it's the funny thing. God, when the jig was up and everybody was confronted, what came out in the wash was that God lied and the serpent told the truth, and God actually confirmed it. Right there in front of everybody. He just threw a temper tantrum and cursed the serpent, and then kicked the Adam and Eve out there from eating of the other tree of forever life everlasting or whatever. So man, God, boy, see that logic. We only had to. All we gotta do is stay in Genesis 3. That's it. We only had to go. We only had to Jesus who. We only had to mention Jesus.
we go before that to the creation story. In terms of the lights and the day. Like a day doesn't make sense in this context, because a day is the result of the earth spinning on its axis and the sun shining on one half of the earth, for a period of time while it is spinning on its axis. So a day only makes sense from the perspective of someone living on earth. In outer space, there is no day.
Right.
So what are you counting if you're God telling the story? What are you counting as a day? What is spinning? What is night? Like, you know, because the light doesn't even permeate. We understand the scientific reason why there's the sky, the night sky is not lit up, even with all the stars and the sunlights or whatnot, because there's no atmosphere for things to refract and all this other kind of stuff. So there's no daylight in space.
Right.
There's no like, so it's what are you counting? Like it's these little context clues, these forensic clues that tell you some Negro on earth wrote that ish and wasn't thinking about it, you know, critically when they wrote it.
Nah, not at all. Not at all. That's what I'm saying. We don't have to leave Genesis 1 through 3. And we ain't even jump to 6, where the sons of God came to daughters of men, or the next biggie. Yeah, the next biggie is no. Actually, next biggie is the flood. But another doozy is the Tower of Babel, where you finally got some human unity going on, doing great things, and then God's like, nah, let's just go ahead. But that's like a kid setting up a Lego city. It did. God just throwing a temper tantrum, just knocking it down. And it said, you and your friends are not even gonna be able to talk to each other to ever do this again. You can't communicate.
Sutek said they anthropomorphized God by the 7th day, causing he to rest. Where did he rest?
Yeah, where did God rest at?
You know, like where you know, what does that even mean for him to tire?
Like rest. They say it means he stopped. That means God stopped.
Right. Yeah, but see, the problem is, you know, reality also falsifies these things because there's no such thing as creation. It's only the creating.
Yeah.
Because you know the creating process is still ongoing. And we can demonstrate this in various ways. It's not fixed and static. So again, you know, the limited knowledge of a non-philosopher, non-scientist is who wrote these texts and not the direct words of God, you know, given to man.
Couldn't be.
You know. Anyway, so what's some of the I know you mentioned on the other program, Brother Aziz, you've been missing for a while. You know, and I know you the last time we spoke, you was kind of working on a like kind of an updated comparison, vocabulary comparison between Wolof and Egyptian. And just trying to see where you are now with that.
I still have it, and it's still most of the stuff that I have, I feel is still valuable. But you know, we stress the methodology, and I feel like when I first started that, you know, I was real excited. But once you get into it, you know, you just want to make sure you're doing the right things, you know. So I'm just taking my time with it at this point. And like a lot of it, like I was writing a paper about my art, and you just find that these are huge concepts, you know, that you have to really break down, you know, into much smaller pieces.
Wow, it just reminded me, a good brother, well, now he goes by Olwe Isibi, started a group on Facebook, Leorgine de Languis. And I just sent you an invite.
Okay.
So brother Jean-Claude Mboli's in it, and myself and brother Wujau and brother Sanjeti and some others. So we just sit there and compare languages and things. And so I think it'll be a valuable group, and you can start. Of course, I'm dealing mainly with Chiluba. The other brother, he mainly deals with Akposo and the Ewe languages.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know all of what Jean-Claude Mboli adds, and so you with Wolof would be a good addition to that. So I just sent you an invite, so you'll see it next time you log into Facebook.
Definitely appreciate that. That sounds like where I need to be, honestly.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, they welcomed me in there warmly with my comparisons with Cleon.
Come on,
And they go back and forth between French and English. So I said they go back and forth between French and English. So you should be comfortable either way it goes.
Definitely.
But yeah, that's some. I don't know if you've read. Like I have to go back and do some more comparisons. And I think like some of that information you shared with me became very valuable in a possible cognate for the word Kemet. And so when I was able to do the translation, not translation, the comparisons, the phonetic comparisons between Wolof, at least with K and M in the consonant sequence.
Yeah.
It became very valuable. And so I do appreciate that. And but yeah, man, that's one of the we need some good Wolof, some more up to date and good Wolof. I'm still trying to track down where Cheikh Anta Diop, got a lot of his terms that I can't find in any other dictionaries.
Yeah. I think that's a problem actually with I was even thinking of writing an article just about that. The fact that a lot of the dictionaries that we get from African languages, especially probably French speaking countries, but especially like Senegal, a lot of the dictionaries are created with non-Senegalese people in mind, which could be a good thing, right? But I think a lot of times, on top of that, people aren't looking at stuff like Cheikh Anta Diop's work. They're really just going straight up from that Western education perspective.
Yeah.
And we don't get that many period.
Yeah, but with Diop it's more so an issue of, because one of the critiques of somebody who was a Professor Screw, who has since passed away. However, one of his critiques was that, when examining Cheikh Anta Diop's work, he could not substantiate in any of the material to his availability, supported a lot of the words and constructions that he came up with. And like and I asked Dr. Raketi Amin, because she translated his book into English, but it's never been published. And she was there at the time and worked with Diop. And so, was asking her, do you know where he was getting these forms from? And she couldn't answer. And I remember, and I wish I kept in touch with this brother. It was a brother I met in Houston mad years ago, almost like 20 years ago. And he, was a student and used to work with Diop in Senegal. And what he told me is that because I asked him that question at that time, and he told me that Diop was gathering. It was two things, that these were really reconstructions. Some of these were a lot of reconstructions, and some of these were actually vocabulary that he personally recorded from like remote villages. So he was trying to gather the vocabulary from elders,
Right.
versus the Wolof that you would hear in the cities and stuff to this nature. The problem is that Diop didn't provide his method in the text so that we can, at least understand where, because people will try to falsify and say that Diop is making this stuff up to make it seem like Wolof is closer to Egyptian than it is, and we can't substantiate a lot of these vocabulary words and verbal structures and things of that nature.
Indeed, that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy we're in the digital age now. Because one thing that I've started doing is that I'll watch a lot of videos about some of the topics that I'm researching. And if I hear somebody use a word that I know personally, that I know I haven't seen in dictionaries, I'll make sure that I record it and save it somewhere.
All right.
Because there are a lot of words that yes, people don't use in the cities, but there are a lot of words that just people don't use commonly, and I think a lot of it is also because of context. Even recently, I was looking in Wolof for a word for sun. And this had been a long time, and I kind of just put it on the back burner, like, Wolof has to have a word for sun, or maybe it doesn't, whatever. Because the common word is dom, and dom means child. It doesn't really mean son. It's not gender specific.
Oh, you're saying son as in child?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking like the sun. I'm like,
right.
Wolof ain't got a word for the sun.
Right. But no, but son like child.
Now, see, this is where the linguistics would come in understanding the variety of ways in which a concept can be expressed. For example, in the Collagen language, they don't have a word like an Egyptian for sa, right? But in the cognate for sa, son, and of course we know the feminine is side, the daughter, or at least that's how we interpret it. In Sumerian and Collagen, the word is heir, like an heir to the throne.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So it's a little different than like son, like biological son.
Like
it's
a semantic drift kind.
But that's just the question. So the question is, what was the original? Was it a biological child?
Yeah.
Or was it the concept of an heir? That was a male heir or a female heir.
Right.
Versus, saying a child, and then in Egyptian, it just became associated with biological and or the reverse. See, that's why we have to do the comparative work.
Right.
So if it's not present necessarily as you would understand it in Wolof, maybe it exists in a closely related or distantly related language, which you have already established the sound meaning correspondences. That's why the sound meaning correspondences are so very important.
Absolutely. But see, that's kind of where I was going. See, because I remember even you were posting something about, a lot of work that people been told Sheikh Hunter Job's work for 35, 40 plus years without any kind of real scientific critique, worthy of, I can't say that like across the board, but there could have been a lot more. I at least I feel like, most of the time. But oh damn. So what was I just saying? It'll come back to me.
I was talking about the sound meaning correspondences.
Oh yeah,
Language.
so you were saying that to look towards other languages, and I was just gonna say that to add to that, also sometimes just looking towards different social and historical perspectives, because even Sheikh Job has a part where he writes Sa, like Egyptian Sa for sun, and kind of has like a similar pronunciation, but there's a word for that for Egyptian man Sa, the Z, in Wolof, and that's Sa, and the man of like Sa Ches, Sa Kayor, man of chess, man of Kayor. But the term for sun is actually a term that means son in a maternal context, in a matrilineal context, and is sang, you know what I mean? And that NG is with that glottal stop, that capital A. So the only reason that makes sense, even in the language, and maybe why Job didn't see it, or maybe not, but is because of that sound correspondence, and also because of the context.
See, that's another thing. So, for example, it's possible. Remember what I said earlier, that the Egyptian language, it is my argument, is monosyllabic, meaning consonant vowel. And that for the most part, any secondary consonant or tertiary consonant is a grammatical morpheme that was either active or fossilized. So it's possible that the za or sa, meaning son, is just the word z, meaning man or person of rank, and then the capital A, what we believe to be the nasalized of Ular Trill,
right,
is actually a grammatical morpheme that has some kind of function that either is a diminutive or helps it to mean something else. And so I was able to demonstrate that, for example, with the word remech. Like the word remech is really a word that derives from zimet, a zim, something to this nature. The Z is the root, meaning a body part. And more so any kind of body part or limb, which became a word for ultimately for penis. And that's how you get the word, remech, meaning meaning a male or husband first and foremost, because it ultimately comes from a root, a body part, meaning a penis. And that R, it is comes from the Z or S sound in remech. And so understanding this in the language and being able to demonstrate it, like I can demonstrate, for example, that the word aten is a dialectical variant of what we call Ra.
Right, I remember.
So this becomes important because what I tend to do is to look internally into the language to see what are the other variants of the same word. And to use those other variants and in terms of the sound meaning correspondences with the other languages to get to the meaning, the ultimate meaning of the word. So for example, in the dialect where the T did not become R, where the T became R, is very few. Like you if you go in any Egyptian dictionary, the lowercase r and the lowercase a consonant sequence is very few words. In matter of fact, you would have to go into Budge or some other obscure German dictionary to see any other variations of that consonant sequence, which lets you know that ultimately is probably a borrowing into the language from some other group. But when we do the internal sound correspondences, we see the other variations of the word, and that dialect still keeps the roots from which the word was built. So that's why you have, for example, Aten dealing with the sun, but also Aten dealing with sunshine and radiance and whatnot. And this fits perfectly with we'll use Obinga's Negro Egyptian family context, because the words for sun itself derives from a root meaning to propagate and to shine. And from there, when in the nominal form, it becomes the word for sun, which explains the I in before Aten, right? And actually it helps to explain the other dialects, because the I, we know for a fact that it was some kind of vowel or like I in before Ra, because the T weakened in between the two vowels and became the R in that scenario. But this is the same reason why the words even the word for Aten is also a word for snake. And because words for snake also come from words meaning to coil and or to propagate.
I got something on that actually. I meant to send you for real.
All right.
Yeah, words for poison and snake. Yeah.
And it's when we understand these things, if because we got to understand that if what I know for sure, if Egyptian was a singular language, there were several different dialects that split way before the advent of ancient Egypt, the political state.
Definitely.
And they reconverged on the Nile, and there was inter-dialect borrowing. And so while you have what we call a coin, where you have a dominant dialect that becomes the language of prestige at any particular point, a minor dialect will contribute words, but it won't give you the full gamut of what was spoken on the ground. And this seems to be the case here with all these other different variations of words for the same exact concept in the ancient Egyptian language. And so, it's a lot of work to be done, but understanding that about Egyptian itself should help even with Wolof.
Oh, definitely.
And in the other languages, and because you might have to lean on Fulani.
Yep. Definitely.
For comparison. So I would for me, the languages that I primarily, the primary language I use is, of course, Chiluba, right? But I don't use Chiluba in isolation. It's Chiluba, Kikongo, and isiZulu. And those three languages I'll use in conjunction, because if I can't answer something in one language, I may be able to answer it in another language, in one of the related languages, or something kind of in the area. And that's what may be the case
with Wolof.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. And right now I'm definitely looking into Coptic and Fulani for the most part, and Soninke. I think those languages are going to be pretty beneficial when it comes to comparisons with Wolof, as well as with the Mande languages.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, you know. There's a lot of people now saying that Wolof is an isolate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it used to be almost like you know, like a folklore thing. People used to be like, you know, Wolof is a a child language between Fulani and Serer. You know, and you know, there's a lot of people that push that. But when you look at Obanga, you know, your work and the work of Jean-Claude Mbuli, you know, there's some other explanations that come into play when
Mm-hmm.
ancient Egyptian comes into the fold.
Exactly. And Sister Emmy Cat, your language or your ancestral language is critical and key to understanding aspects of Egyptian as well. And you know, you have a cousin, so to speak, in Dr. Kipkoech Sambu with the collagen languages, with Doluo being a relative. You know, there's some key aspects in those languages which are critical as well, which may answer some questions in terms of, you know, recapturing ancient Egyptian thought, you know, and culture.
Absolutely.
Just unmutes. Absolutely.
No, yeah, but no,
Yeah.
that is true. And especially, you know, after I watched the videos that you did with Dr. Kip Koich, and I did get two of his books, and I was looking through, and I could definitely tell that there were similarities, and that kind of inspired me to definitely want to get that work done once I get into the linguistic part of things.
Indeed, indeed. But yeah, was there anything else anybody had in mind? I know Brother Sean had to bounce.
Yeah, it's been a long day, so I'm about to wrap it up. But I think, you know, from what I hear that Sean reported on as far as the debate, I think there's a little light at the end of the tunnel, you know,
Yeah.
as far as that goes. But yeah, the work that you all are discussing right now, yeah, I think that's really good. And then the group that you mentioned and the comparisons of notes and things. And this is what I'm trying to stress to people, that there's so much that we can learn. There's so much more to learn, that we are literally way behind. And that's just me getting on a soapbox about the focus that people have in this so-called communities, you know, this social communities, of this trivial, shallow stuff. I'm like, man, do you understand how much work that we still have to do and how far we behind over other so-called schools of thought and everything? And I always try to compare the German school of Egyptology and the meticulous detail that they're known for, with the
Yeah.
handwriting of full dictionaries that took 15 years, and
Man,
people doing epigraphical work, like going to Egypt, sitting in front of a temple wall, spending the night to redraw everything
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. And we want to cry about whether Egypt is named after the skin color people or whether Egypt is gay. I'm like, that's to me, I'm telling you, that's retarded. That's just flat out retarded at this point. And I'm like, man, and for 6 decades, over 6 decades. I mean, I can see it being a blip on the radar. You know, we want to argue and talk about it, but man, 60 plus years, you know. So anyway, that's why, you know, these conversations and stuff like that, that's where I'm at. I love to swim in these waters as opposed to all the other stuff. And I just hope to see more people get on board and just recognize the other stuff as noise for what it is, you know. So that's my last piece, man. But I appreciate the after party. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna call it a night.
Indeed, indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta go ahead.
Now, before you finish up, I was gonna say, since you know you were discussing linguistics, and you do have like a beginner's, I guess, introduction to linguistics course that you have on your website. So how long does the course take? And what are the prerequisites that someone needs to have before enrolling for that?
No prerequisites. It's the introductions to linguistics itself. So it's not historical comparative linguistics. That'll be something in the future. And it's 9 weeks, but you just go at your own pace. So if it takes you 3 weeks to do 1 week, it takes you 3 weeks to do 1 week. But
I got the book, so that was good stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to get a lot of us familiar with, at least with these concepts, because it's mathematics, and we need to get more math savvy. But linguistics is a good discipline to just learn logic, argumentative logic as well, if done right. But certain people won't necessarily see it as that, so they can't they won't recognize it as such. But once you lift the layers, you'd be like, oh, this is just pure mathematics. And but yeah, so yeah, it's 9 weeks, but it's go at your own pace.
Okay.
And I'm actually revising some of it, and trying to decide on a book, because the one book that we're using is I think it went out of print, and it's kind of hard to find. And so I need something. So I'm reviewing some text that is easily accessible, and or that I can even give them as a PDF, because the other book is a hard copy, and they don't have a PDF version, of it. And I guess I could scan it, but it'll take a lot to scan that text. But Courtney says logic is not pure math. No, but math is pure logic. He says, what's the difference between sin and crime in the Bible? That's another conversation. But yes, the beginnings, I'm always and I'm going off of what someone is saying in the chat. I'm always available to interact and for questions, and then sometimes I just do a live or something to that nature. But because of the schedules of everyone that participates in the courses, and when they begin and whatnot, it's not feasible for me to have a set schedule to sit there live with everyone. So certain things are pre-recorded. Well, all of them are pre-recorded, and then I just follow up with kind of live conversations, to be able to answer questions that anyone may have, and to go over certain things. So that's how it is. So that way, if you work overnight shift, you can, when you get off of work in the morning, you can go into the class and things and learn or whatnot. Or if you live in a country that's 7 hours away, you won't have an issue of the time barrier, having to wake up at 3 a.m. your place just to get for a class that we're having. I don't know, but yeah, the scheduling thing was a issue. So the pre-recorded classes is where it's at, and by doing that, it allows me to develop more courses. So if I can knock out those courses or those modules, then I can do a totally different course and teach them both at the same time, without necessarily having to physically be there, but always be available for questions and things of that nature.
That's the exact right. That's the exact method of the courses I have. You know, go at your own pace and then be available once a week to answer any and all questions and clarify things. That's the best way to go. That's the way to go, especially now that we are multi-continental participations and things, multiple time zones and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much how it's going to be for everybody. Yeah, so that's good.
Definitely gonna jump on one of those classes and waiting on that grammar book for sure.
Oh yeah. I'm yeah, because I'm and see yeah. So we're gonna get it in. But I'm gonna say Shem and Hotep and peace to everybody. I appreciate the conversation. Definitely.
Indeed.
All right.
Yeah, have a good night.
Sure.
Sure.